as a local here in the area, I'm super excited that you'll be representing this district in the Senate.
I'm glad to have the election behind me. It's the hardest thing,
right.
not the hardest thing I've ever been through, but the hardest thing I've ever done. All right, so I want to open up, first off, prayers to a young man and his family out of Loganville, Derek Moore, 47 of Loganville, Georgia. This is an example of a true hero. He was over in Myrtle Beach. I don't know all the circumstances surrounding this, but he spotted a young girl struggling in a riptide, in a rip current. You know what those are, Chastity, where
they're so
you're in the
scary.
wash, yeah, and they pull you out.
Yes.
It's like somebody is dragging you out to the middle of the ocean.
Absolutely.
So this guy observes this young girl struggling in the water at Myrtle Beach, and he runs to her, swims to her, ends up rescuing her, getting her to safety, but then he ended up succumbing to the rip current. Wow. And if you've never been in one, it's hard to understand the force of nature that they are.
Absolutely.
Where it can take a grown man and pull you against your will into the ocean. And unfortunately, he did pass away. Derek Moore of Loganville, God bless him. He is a hero.
Yes.
Prayers for him and his family. That
Absolutely.
is tough. That is tough.
Truly tragic situation. I know my brother got caught in a rip current when he was about 15 years old, and scared the life out of me to see just how fast those things can drag you. So it's tremendous that this young man was willing to, or not young, 47. He was willing to run towards danger,
right,
in order to save this girl. And that's what real masculinity looks like.
Yeah, I just when I read the story, and I did not realize he was from Loganville until actually I got here to the studio, because I read the story the night before and I prepared it, and then I guess more information was coming out about that, where he's from. But it's just it speaks of who we are as Americans. How often is it, Taylor, that we hear a story? Look, the news oftentimes shares stories that makes us not proud to be Americans, but how often we hear a story of somebody who runs towards danger as opposed to running from danger or recording it with their phone.
Well, and that is an important point to make. That is a culturally specific thing. I have very good friends who have done missions work and things in other cultures, and the reality is in many Southeast Asian cultures, just to take one instance, and this is pervasive in other parts of the world too, that is not the way people respond to situations. There was a specific circumstance that a friend of mine relayed where he was trying to help a person who had gotten hit. This was a young lady who'd gotten hit in a tragic car accident, but he thought it was tragic. His taxi driver threatened to leave him there if he didn't get back in the taxi and continue. No one around was helping. The police were very nonchalant. That young lady unfortunately succumbed to her injuries and died on the side of the road.
Wow.
Nobody cared. So I want to make the point that, just like you're saying, this is something that should make us proud to be an American.
Yeah.
When you see people like this who know how to respond to danger and who are willing to run towards it for the cause of rescuing those who are vulnerable, that is something that it speaks to this man's heroism, but it also speaks to the broader cultural context that is
right.
what we expect.
Yep.
So he's certainly a hero.
Yeah, no doubt. Taylor, have you been following what has taken place in Washington, D.C.? And we're going to get into this a little deeper in the show. Chas and I talked about a week or two ago that, Trump really took an aggressive approach to crushing crime in D.C. And I was there a few years ago, and I know you've made trips up there, but I was there a few years ago, and if you deviate from the main drag just slightly, it was chaos. You could be 2 blocks from the main drag, and you felt like you were in the Wild West, where you had people just driving like maniacs, motorcycles flying around. So Trump decided, hey, enough is enough, and they have cracked down. They've had more than 16,000 arrests since launching this in August of 2025. The operation has resulted in the arrest of 35 homicide suspects, more than 100 known gang members, and more than 3,200 people in narcotics-related cases. And so they're attributing all this now. It's safer. It's a safer city. And there's 2 elements to this, right? Where you have a faction of people saying, well, you're just being too hard. You're policing too hard. It's like, wait a minute. At the end of the day, this is an American city. It's the capital of our nation. We have to have law and order everywhere, but especially in the capital of our nation, Taylor.
You know, what comes to mind is Rick Jackson, who is our Republican nominee for governor here in the state. He has a quote that he's said at just about every talk I've heard him give, and that is, you don't get what you expect, you get what you inspect. And that's true in a government context, but it's also true in a political context. And why I think that's relevant is you can have all of the societal standards that you want, but if those are just on paper things, or if those are just things we tell ourselves that we want safer streets, that we want strong communities, without actually putting the rule of law into practice, without actually enforcing the things that our communities decide are going to be illegal because they cause damage and danger, then you don't actually have a law. You don't actually have a societal standard.
That's
you
right.
have to enforce it. And I think that's what Trump's doing. I love the fact that he's calling it the Make DC Safe and Beautiful. It's very Trump. The name is very, very much in keeping with our president, but it's also just simple. I mean, it like you said, it's our national capital. It should be safe.
And if you get
It
to
should be
the
beautiful.
organic reason of why this is taking place is because you have young people who have been raised probably in fatherless homes that now are being raised by gangs or raised by pop culture. And then they have no regard for the law. They're 14, 15, 16 years old, and staying out to 2 in the morning is commonplace. Theft is commonplace. Carjacking, disrespecting the laws, disrespecting law enforcement. And until we get that element under control and that we have a more an adequate family structure within these communities, the only option is applying law enforcement and incarceration. Because you cannot have chaos on the streets. And this is not just minor petty criminal stuff, Taylor. This isn't just, stealing mail out of the guy's mailbox next door. It is truly chaos, and I've seen it with my own eyes. And I would think to myself, imagine if you lived here and you're just a good old-fashioned, God-fearing, law-abiding citizen, and you have this chaos taking place around you on 24/7. And that was going on until Trump got there.
Absolutely. I have a lot of good friends in D.C. You mentioned that I've been there several times, but I have friends who live there, and the difference that they've described in just the last year and a half to 2 years is unbelievable. And I was there 2 years ago. I saw it for myself because I was there 2 years ago, and I'm never one to just stay in the touristy areas. So
you like venturing off.
I do. And so some friends of mine and I were walking. It was probably 11 o'clock at night, which is not all that late, but we walked through some areas that if it hadn't been the kind of people that we were, which were,
brave,
capable young men, 5 to 6 in a group, we weren't, we didn't face
you wouldn't have
likelihood
gone
of attack.
solo, is what you're saying.
I probably wouldn't have, even though I'm prone to put myself in some of those situations, but yeah, it is a good thing. This is an unmitigated positive.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got some of the left trying to act like policing and greater policing is racist or is this, that, or the other. I personally think that the soft bigotry of low expectations or of asserting that people just because of their skin color are either more likely to commit crimes or less likely to want safe streets. I mean, that's just absurd.
It is. Yeah, it is. But that's where we are. That's where we are in the nation. No matter what takes place, it's going to be run through the optics of race.
That's right.
And I just want to get down to the basis of optics of good versus evil, right versus wrong, just
Yes.
doing the right thing. And so it's painful, but I'm glad to see it's taking place and it's yielding results.
Me too.
Before we take our quick break, this was something you and I were chuckling about before we started the show today. The WNBA has an issue. I have zero interest in the WNBA. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm really not a fan of the NBA, but I will watch the finals and playoffs. Yep. I get a kick out of watching the teams as they get to the end of the season. And I will watch an occasional Hawks game. I appreciate the sport, and I definitely appreciate the incredible talent that's on display. The WNBA is not something that I watch, but it has definitely piqued my interest since Caitlin Clark, but more recently, Sophie Cunningham.
Yes.
Who has just now become the ambassador of the NBA with her pointing. Chastity's over here doing that clever little point.
That's right.
And so, once again, though, this immediately has turned into a cultural issue.
Yes.
It's not a sports issue. It's not, hey, are you behaving as a good sportsman within the WNBA? Are you behaving within the boundaries of what is allowed? It's now right versus left, black versus white. How does it get to this point? And the WNBA, to show how bananas they are, how ludicrous they are, because you've got the leadership there that's advocating for men still being able to participate in women's sports. Now you've got some former NBA players that maybe are not good enough to play in the NBA, but would be absolutely dominating in the WNBA, have said, hey, I identify as a woman. I want to play in the WNBA.
Well, let's be clear. They would crush, probably single-handedly, any team that you want to put on the court in a WNBA game. And guys, this is so funny to me because they're literally trying to decide what the W means in WNBA. Like, are we even going to keep that? Does it even mean real women? That to me it's kind of mind-boggling, but it's also Not surprising, because it's where our culture has gone, and the people who are at the top of the WNBA, unfortunately, have completely kowtowed to the modern radical leftist agenda
Bizarre.
of acting like we don't know basic biological reality. I mean, we know how this is going to go, by the way, because in France, their national women's basketball league is dominated by a 6'3" guy who would be substandard by any
Really?
metric
I didn't know
whatsoever.
this.
Oh yeah. And he is absolutely dominating. Took all the trophies, defensive player of the year, highest numbers in across so many categories. He's only 6'3", and that's not a short guy, but for the NBA, that's short. And he would have to have such a higher level of talent. And to me, it's not only absurd, it's not only dangerous, it's forcing a controversy that highlights the fact that our culture is losing its mind.
And that's exactly what this is. Royce White has no plans on playing the WNBA.
No.
Neither does Ennis. What is the other guy?
Enes Kanter.
Enes Kanter.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple other guys that have come out and said what they're doing is they're going to force the hand of the WNBA
Yes.
to make a choice.
Yes.
And because right now they say that players who are women are eligible, they don't define, well, a woman can be anything. It's like, okay, well then let's play that game and make us, because the WNBA was not thinking of the fact that you would have a true alpha male say, I'm a woman and I want to play in this sport. They're thinking about this other, what we're seeing in the transgender community where somebody is confused as to what they are. I don't know how that happens. They've got a problem, and this is the best thing that could happen because it's going to put it in the daylight. It's going to put a spotlight on it, and it's going to force them into a decision.
Yeah, I really do think we're actually going to see a good decision from them soon, because if not, they're going to be even more unwatchable than they are right now, because it's going to become a handful of men who are just dominating, and you're going to see talent drop out. You're going to see interest fall away off a cliff, even from the low numbers that they have right now. So I think they're going to be forced to take a position on this, which, despite their personal and obvious political stances, I think it's going to be good to see. At least that's my hope.
I hope, that's what I'm saying. I hope that cooler heads prevail and people come out and they say, let's do this the right way. Let's make this just like what Pete Heck said to the military. There's two sexes. End of story.
There are.
And let's get this thing right. And I say this because I think it'll have a trickle down effect to universities, which should already be compliant, and all the high schools and anybody else that's thinking of the nonsense and continuing it. Let's put an end to this crap. Here we are. We're halfway through 2026, and we're still having to battle this issue, Taylor.
Well, the nice thing is, just before we cut to break, I'll mention the fact that there are several Save Girls Sports bills that are moving forward at the national level, and one of those has stopped and will come back up after the recess. It's going to have to come back up in September, primarily because we've got good conservatives in the Senate who are raising red flags about the definitions and making sure that this bill does not undo what Trump's executive order and what numerous states have already done on this issue. But I do think we're going to see national legislation pass, potentially even as early as September, that will help correct this issue, hopefully at all levels, but at least certainly at the school level.
Sad that we even have to do it, but unfortunately we have to do it.
We do.
Yep. You're listening to the Marc McMain Show. Take a quick break. We'll be right back with Taylor Hawkins. And welcome back, Marc McMain, Taylor Hawkins. Chastity, I know we're yapping a lot over here, so if you want to jump in, you're more than welcome to chime in. We're motor mouths over here today.
I love it. Speaking facts. Just no nonsense,
We
right?
want a woman's
Common
point of
sense.
view, too. So if we say something, don't just chime right in.
Hey, I love what y'all are saying.
You're running the electronics, so you can just shut our mics off and
I'm
you can
happy.
take over. You know how this works. Taylor, something interesting took place last week. The Athens City Council voted on what they called the approval or denial of criminalization of homelessness, and it failed. This was an effort by the conservative movement to try and address the ever-present massive issue in Athens and surrounding areas of homelessness that is beginning to manifest and is beginning to multiply. I don't know if you have traveled to Athens recently. I'm in Athens almost every day. I'm going to share a quick story, and then I want to kind of get your assessment and your analysis of the name of what they're calling this and where this thing goes. But I was traveling to Athens the other day, and I cannot remember. I don't think I was on Prince. I was kind of probably lost in thought. I'm driving down a road real close to the campus, and on my left there was a park bench or a couple of park benches, and it was strewn with adult men, several who were passed out. Others were loitering around, just almost kind of looking like zombies. These are obviously homeless people that are just sleeping and zombie walking during the day. I don't care if that hurts your feelings or not. It is what it is. It doesn't look good. And on my right, this is on my left, on my right is a young lady walking out of her house, probably a student, maybe coming out of her college housing, 100 yards from each other. This is a recipe for disaster. This is not good, and this is not acceptable.
That's right.
The end result, and you and I are going to talk about how we get there, and I'm going to share some ideas that I have, but the end result cannot be people living on the streets in public places or on private property in Athens or in any city in this area.
Correct.
We've got to figure out how do we get to that point.
Yes. And the point that we were just talking about that you wanted me to make on air is that the left talks about what we need to do, the solution that works, which is what I would call compassionate enforcement. They call it criminalizing homelessness as a way to act like the right or the people who want it, because they're not even all on the right. There's a lot of people on the left who recognize that this is the pathway forward.
Yeah.
It is. And there's a big difference between criminalizing a person and enforcing reasonable laws against conduct that your society, your community has decided is dangerous. I mean, things like public camping, trespassing, drug use, obstruction, all these things create hazards in a community.
Yep.
And so just to bring this back a little bit to the data, I wanted to mention, because you talked about that anecdotally, everyone who's listening has probably experienced that at some point in their life.
Yep.
And they go back and they feel like, where does compassion fit into this? I don't like what I'm seeing. Well, I'll tell you where it fits in. Unfortunately, empathy has been weaponized to say that all we need to do is throw money at the situation and not enforce the law. And what I mean by that is, in the last 10 years, chronic homelessness has increased 81% nationwide.
Yeah.
81%. That's not just someone spending a single night on the street. It's chronic homelessness.
These are people that make the street is their home. That's where they live.
Exactly.
Yep.
Meanwhile, taxpayer-funded homeless beds increased 151%. And the so-called continuum of care spending has increased 111%. And those are HUD figures looking at nationwide data. And so the question is legitimate then, if the strategy of spending more money and tolerating more behavior has led to chronic street homelessness skyrocketing, don't we need to reconsider the strategy?
Well, and going back to what you just said a second ago, too, the empathy side of this is the left typically takes the approach of appeasing and enabling.
Yes.
Think about this. Think about back when there was, go back 15, 20 years ago when there was a problem on the streets with transmission of drugs that were intravenous drugs, right? Heroin, things where they're sticking a needle in their arm. So what was their solution? Well, let's give people clean needles, right? So as opposed to getting people off the drugs, let's create these, I think they call them needle clinics or needle exchanges or something like that, where you could take your dirty needle in and get a clean needle so you're not transmitting the drug, right? Just the absolute worst wrong approach that you can take. And then what is their solution for teen pregnancy? Well, let's give teenagers condoms.
Yes.
Let's give teenagers the tools so that they don't get each other pregnant, as
So
opposed to getting to
foolish.
the core. And that's what a conservative wants to do, is let's get to the core of the issue. So when we're talking about homelessness, what I want to do is I want to get to the core of why they're doing this, why they're living it. And I'm not going to say I've got every category pinned down, but I think it kind of falls under these four. I think you're battling a mental health issue. You have a drug issue. Probably those overlap. You've got those that are just truly falling on hard times, Taylor. Maybe a mom who has lost, went through a divorce, lost their house, and just doesn't have the means. And the only solution is living in her car, living on the street. I think that's the smallest faction, but I think there are people that just fallen on hard times. I think many veterans fall into that category, because 8% of the homeless population are veterans, which is a massive representation. And then the final faction would be those that just don't want to work.
Right.
And so what I want to do is take a minute and explore and I'm not going to say we're going to solve this mystery in a 1-hour show, we're not, but how do we begin to address this in an organic way that really has long-term yielding results? And I'm probably going to ruffle a couple of feathers with my ideas.
I'm sure you are, but again, it's not like this problem specifically, unfortunately, among the panoply of issues that government officials face, it kind of uniquely is one where compassion, I shouldn't say uniquely, because compassion is weaponized in a lot of contexts, but compassion is weaponized to make us think we don't have the solution to the problem. And even in places as liberal as San Diego, they understand, because they've lived it, the solution to this problem. But in 2023, they finally passed, even again, liberal city, liberal state. They had tons of shelters, but the homeless population was not utilizing those. There was no incentive for the people who are in any of those four categories to actually seek the help that San Diego residents were paying for. And so in 2023, they passed a law that enforced prohibition of public encampments. And just in the last 3 years, there's an audit that was done just a few months ago that demonstrated a substantial decrease in the number of what they want to call unsheltered population. It's homelessness is what it is. But the homeless population downtown, finally a massive reduction, and people actually taking advantage of the solutions that were offered by San Diego. Enforcement was necessary to get there. So like you're saying, I think in Georgia, we do need a little more comprehensive approach, because we don't even have some of the facilities, and some of that's good reason, because we haven't wasted money setting up things people won't take advantage of. But enforcement and making sure that law enforcement has the ability to actually push people in the direction they need to go, that's an essential element.
That's what we have to give them, the tools so they can take action. You're listening to the Marc McMain Show, talking with Taylor Hawkins. Our subject right now is homelessness. If you live in Walton County, Barrow County, Oconee County, you probably don't see it that much. Although it does exist, it is an issue. I've seen it. The Loganville post office, there was a time there was a guy living in the Loganville post office. I go there quite often at night, and Taylor would walk in, and there's a guy that set up his little bed in the back. It was a nice air-conditioned lobby. It's open 24/7. And think of this. Think if you have a daughter that's 16 years old and you ask her to go to the P.O. box for you to get the mail. Would you want her going into that place at 10 o'clock at night and there's somebody living there? So yes, the law enforcement has to be given the tools to be able to enact upon these scenarios where they come somebody that is breaking the law. And then what we do is we have to create a facility. I don't know what the name is. I don't know what the solution is, but it's a facility that begins to take these people in that are living on the streets and to identify which category they fall into and figure out, how do we rehabilitate you? How do we get you right?
Yeah.
Because the end product needs to be two things. Number one, you do not live on these streets. That's end product number one. And end product number two is, let's get you back as a contributing member of society.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's important to reference what you just said about putting yourself in the situation of thinking, if you have a 16-year-old daughter, do you want her to be put in that circumstance? That is where public policy needs to come from, not just from a place of compassion for the people who are in these situations, but for the people who their behavior affects. Don't forget the people who aren't homeless, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
Those are the people that society needs to take action for first and foremost, because they're the ones who are not creating a dangerous situation. You need to think about the child who has to walk past an encampment to get to school. You need to think about the elderly person who is afraid to walk in their own hometown after dark. The business owner whose, their storefront becomes unusable. I've talked to many people like
I have
that.
too. You're right. Yeah.
Compassion for those people, I have to say, is first and foremost, and that's where the law needs to be.
Well, and I'm
directed.
glad you said that too, because Taylor, and you hit the nail on the head. This is not just compassionate for the law-abiding members of society. It's compassionate for those that are living on the streets.
Yes.
They don't
Yes, it
want
is.
to be there. This is not the American dream.
Exactly.
They're struggling with something, and I am 100% certain that if they were to go through a program that would rehabilitate them, whatever phrase you want to use, I'm not into political correctness, so I'm going to say things that are going to ruffle people's feathers. But if we're taking somebody who is homeless, you put them through a program, that program rehabilitates them, and they become a contributing member of society, that person will thank you.
Yes, they will. Yeah, we've somehow gotten to the point where some people believe the compassionate thing to do is to allow a person to remain indefinitely in an encampment, addicted, mentally ill, surrounded by filth and danger. And I personally don't think that's compassion.
God-awful.
It is awful. It is awful. I think compassion says you have dignity. Your life
Right.
actually matters. And we as a society are not going to abandon you. We're actually going to tell you it is not best for you to do this thing. And we're going to compassionately enforce you not having that avenue anymore and actually pushing you towards finding a solution.
I got a question. We got a few minutes left for the next break, Taylor. I got a question, and I don't know if I know the answer to this one. How is everybody not on board with this? How is it, if I was to take a sampling of 100 people from throughout these communities, from Athens, from Madison, from Barrow County, from Monroe, and put us all in a conference room and share, you and I on a stage sharing this, there's going to be a faction of people in that room that hate us for this because they think we're being non-compassionate, we're not understanding the issue. This is the right solution.
Yes.
We've tried the other way.
Yes.
It is an abysmal failure.
Yeah.
Denver's an example. San Francisco's an example. Seattle, Washington's an example. And what's going to happen, it's going to get worse here. Why? Because Georgia's a very friendly climate. It's pleasant year-round. Gets a little cold in the winter, but it's not unlivable.
Very temperate, yes.
There's money out here. Athens is a very wealthy community, so you have people willing to shell out. So we are ripe for this to grow and get worse, and we got to take the bull by the horns and fix it now.
Yeah. And the question you pose is a good one, which is why in the world are people unwilling to come to the table? And unfortunately, the reality is, just like with the race issue we were discussing earlier, there are people who make money sowing division. They get attention, they get validation, they get resources, financial and political resources on the basis of sowing division and keeping people mad at each other. So even in circumstances like this, where there are common sense solutions that most people should be able to agree on, and practically speaking, if you separate them from the political talking points, they do agree on them. Even in those circumstances, you have division. You have people willing to kind of be hate-filled in their rhetoric and in what they actually pursue in public policy, because they have been misguided by an ideology that says that any kind of enforcement at all is mean, rude. It's like that. It's a juvenile position. Frankly, it is an undeveloped mind and imagination about what's possible and how a free society operates.
Well, the adults in the room have to prevail. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, folks. Normal radio stations will be charging you extra for this quality of content. We're giving it to you for free, but we do have to pay a couple bills. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Marc McMain, Taylor Hawkins, Chastity Stewart. Chastity, again, I realize we went 30 minutes now. We haven't let you say a peep. Anything you want to chime in with? Anything we're leaving out?
No, I'm excited about the next topic, though.
All right. You're going to chime in on this one. So President Trump made a big deal when he became president again for the second term. He had the executive order titled Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship. So it's not too long ago, Taylor, if you remember during COVID, and thank you to Fauci and the archaic approach to stifling free speech in that time. If you even had a thought of something that may be beneficial and it went against what they were saying, you were destroyed.
Yes.
You were hammered.
Yeah.
And people can't forget that. Well, then when he finally gets called out last week, or was it 2 weeks ago now, when they had the Senate hearing, and what does he do? He tucks his tail and just basically pleads the fifth so that he doesn't incriminate himself on anything, even though he's already been pardoned.
That's right.
So it is despicable when you think about what they, being the ones in control of that narrative during that time, were able to say, and what good, just curious Americans trying to get out there and find a solution, how they were stifled.
And it's a very important thing, because what is shaped by the boundaries of the Overton window of what's allowable inside of a society, especially of what's enforced, that then creates the basis for public policy. And the public policy I'm thinking of specifically, it just happened to come to mind when you pulled up this topic, was there's a man, he was in his 30s in Canada, but it'll be relevant, in Canada, who could not get a organ transplant last year. There were 2025. Okay, not 2021 back when Fauci and Biden were in office, but even as recently as 2025, because he didn't have the COVID vaccine. And so because he wasn't, that was the only reason they denied him eligibility. Otherwise healthy, and because he didn't have that, he died and left a young wife and 4 kids who are now fatherless. The agonizing thing, or the just maddening thing, is they had the temerity, that hospital in Canada, to go to that wife and to ask her if she would be willing for him to be an organ donor. So his organs are worth harvesting, but he's not worth saving. That's the kind of policy that is created by restrictions on freedom of speech, being able to talk about the dangers the vaccine posed and understand the facts that while even at times, now I have no personal affiliation or affinity whatsoever for the vaccine. I don't think anyone should have taken it. But even if you're in a position where the facts aren't known, what Biden and Fauci were doing was they were using the power of the most powerful public squares in our society, that is Facebook,
That's
Meta,
right,
etc., to enforce government censorship of what they consider to be unallowable opinions.
If you took to social media during that time and you expressed a view that was contrarian to, and I'm not talking about a radical view, just something that was exploring a holistic approach to how to deal with this sickness, this disease, then you would have been banned from Facebook.
You were treated as a heretic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you see the montage? Somebody on social media did a really good montage. Do you remember when initially they were coming out and saying that COVID had a 3.5% mortality rate, and President Trump had come out and said, hey, it's way less than that. And he used the word, I have a hunch, but it's because he was talking to the experts. He says it's going to be a fraction of a percent. And he was just roasted.
Yep.
Just roasted in mainstream news. So CNN, MSNBC, all the typical radical left news sources went down this path of saying, hey, Trump has lost his mind. He's using words like he has a hunch it's going to be. Well, guess what the number ended up being? It was a fraction of 1%. I think it finished being 0.2% mortality rate. And in some cases, they say that's about the same of what a normal influenza would have. But back then, he was demonized along with everybody else who was saying something that was, hey, is it really 3.5%? Can I do something else besides the vaccine? If you were questioning what was the law of the land at the time, you were destroyed.
And this is so important because free speech is the most important bulwark of a free society. If you don't have free speech, you don't have any other freedom.
Yep.
Because you don't have the freedom of religion if you don't have the ability to speak about what is religiously important to you.
Right.
If you don't have the freedom of speech, then you don't have the ability to speak about the issues that are most fundamental, most foundational to your society. And so it's not like free speech doesn't matter when we all agree. It only matters when we disagree.
That's
to
right.
be able to have the ability to disagree in the public square on things that matter, especially when it comes to public policy. And what you saw was essentially not the first glimpse, but a powerful glimpse into what a fascist America would look like. The left tries to throw that term around, using it against the right. They don't know what they're talking about. Fascism was government cooperation with big business to basically take over those businesses and use them as a weapon of the government while allowing them some ability to create value in the marketplace. So you had the value creation of capitalism, but you had the total control of communism. That is what fascism was. And you saw that during COVID, under Biden, specifically with social media. And the reason that's important is whether you're on it or not, social media is the public marketplace of our day.
And they were in conjunction with each other.
Yes.
They were absolutely working in conjunction. You listen to the Marc McMain Show, Taylor Hawkins, Chastity, you're over there. I can see steam coming out of your ears. Did you say you watched the Fauci show on Angel Studios?
Oh man, it's incredible. You guys got to watch it.
Is it a series or is it a documentary?
It's a documentary,
Okay.
about 2 hours.
So watch it. It's a one.
Oh
one
man,
episode
everything that you guys are saying right now, spot on. Media, just the trust that everyone's losing, and just being informed is key. So, but it's been going on for 40 years.
Well, think about this,
Yes.
and this kind of a little bit of an offshoot, but this gives you an example of why this was truly propaganda, what he was doing. I had traveled to D.C. to visit my son back during COVID. So let's say it was 2021, if memory serves me right.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in a gift shop down in downtown D.C. near the wharf. And I walked into this gift shop, and
I
of
already
course,
know where you're going.
you're surrounded by, you're 10%, you're 8% at that point, Republican, Democrat. So you're surrounded by leftists. And I go to this gift shop, and they have T-shirts, and on the front of the T-shirt is the image of Fauci, and a slogan like, he's America's doctor, he's our doctor, or something like that. And I remember seeing it and almost getting kind of sick to my stomach that they were idolizing this guy, and it was really a propaganda piece, Taylor. Is what it was.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is, thankfully, his diaries have been taken by the committee that subpoenaed them, which is great. It's just golden because we get to see a look inside of what was going on in his head at that point, and you can see basically that all of the anger that people are feeling is well justified.
Oh yeah,
because he was as full of himself.
He
as
was
seemed to
thrilled
be.
with his celebrity status.
Which anybody
Yeah.
who was paying attention knows, and I'm not throwing any shade against those who weren't, but he gave interviews all the time.
Yeah.
And he was just on a relentless self-aggrandizing campaign. And the thing that killed me back when it happened, some people were pointing it out, it's now even more absurd today to look back and realize that, is some of those interviews were done at his home office. And you could see the pictures on the wall. And you can tell a lot about a person by the pictures hanging on their wall. The pictures hanging on his wall are of himself. He has more portraits of himself.
He probably has his own
hanging
T-shirt
inside his office than anyone I've ever even heard of. It's just
But
absurd.
think about who in his, because he would have to have given permission for them to use his image on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Who in that position would ever authorize? Yeah, I'm going to let you put my face. It's just a shocker. But that's worth watching. If Chess haven't seen it yet.
Oh man, please.
What is it called? Is probably easy to find if you.
It's one of the top ones on the new Angel Network. I'm not
Angel
sure.
Studios,
Angel
yeah.
Studios, wonderful platform, and just you'll find it's one of the top few searches.
It really is. It's a platform that you do have to pay a subscription to, no different than Netflix. And then what they're doing is they are producing some of their own content that is very patriotic. It's conservative based. It's factually based content. And then the other stuff that they do, Taylor, is they'll take something that isn't their product and they'll kind of give it the check mark, saying, hey, yeah, this is approved by the Angel Studios. So it's kind of a neat way to watch a movie. No, you're not going to be getting into it, and then 30 minutes later, it's got some radical leftist messaging.
They're also doing a great job because they're making beautiful art. And frankly, unfortunately, a lot of the people who got into the art space with a distinctly kind of almost the moral is the point instead of they're good at art and they're doing it from a broadly
Right.
Christian worldview. Fortunately, a lot of that art is pretty painful to watch. But what Angel Studios is doing, they're creating
It's a quality product.
stunning
Yeah.
films.
Have you
Yes.
seen Young Washington?
I have. It is amazing.
That was the best movie I've seen in the past 10
Yeah,
years.
and what it does a great job of without having to be explicit about it, which I think actually pulls away from the from the moral of the story is just how blessed by providence that
Yeah,
man was.
no doubt, no doubt.
Absolutely.
But like you said too, the quality of the production was as good as any other mainstream Hollywood level movie that you will ever see, and great actors.
Yes.
Ben Kingsley, Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
I don't know the young kid that played Washington.
Yeah, I don't either. I can't remember his name right now, but I think he's definitely a rising talent. That's
He
for
was
sure,
very
'cause
good.
He killed it.
Yeah, he absolutely did.
And I like the network as well because they have like young, wholesome videos, educational videos for the kids to watch that you don't have to worry that they're going to be bombarded with some negative things that you don't want
That's
them to
right.
hear or
Yeah.
see. So it's that Angel Studios is a wonderful platform.
This actually gets back to something that's directly tied to free speech, and that is the most important part of a conversation is not even the conversation that's being had. It's the one underlying that conversation. It's the assumptions that are being made.
That's right.
And the assumptions that every Hollywood film that has come out, just about every single one in the last 20 or 30 years, it's coming from a leftist worldview. And it's inundated our society with these assumptions that are inherently anti-freedom, inherently anti-family. And so
Everything is about degrading the moral fabric of our society.
That's right.
Everything
That's
that they
right.
put out.
And that's why what Angel Studios is doing is not just great from a content perspective, it's great from a societal perspective.
And I'll leave you with this as we take this final break. It is good enough. You could sign up for that and you could cancel Netflix and you wouldn't miss a
Yes.
beat.
I did.
They've got enough stuff, so it's really good. We're going to take one more break, wrap up this segment, and we'll get you back to the great country music in just a little bit. Welcome back. Marc McMain, Taylor Hawkins. We got about 10 minutes left to land this plane, and it's back onto the fantastic country music that True Country Q92.3 is famous for playing. What do you think of our music, Chastity? Our music library is just absolutely
I
rocking.
love it. Yeah.
Isn't it good?
It's so good.
What a
I
great
hope
job.
everyone else is enjoying it.
Well, Tall Paul, Les Lane, Charlie Morgan, they have spent time curating
Yes.
our music library to be
It's a
sure
lot of work.
Yeah, well, and it's true to our roots. It is great stuff. And I got to tell you something. I am everyone knows I'm an 80s and 90s country guy.
Yes.
Everything from Hank Jr. to Charlie Daniels, Alabama, all the way up to Travis Tritt, Alan Jackson, all the hits of the 90s. But you know what I'm really digging? I'm not a big fan of the new stuff. I'm doing it for you young whippersnappers. I'm not a big fan of the new stuff. But the female talent that's out right now, is it Miranda Lambert?
Yes.
What's-
Love her.
What's
Ella.
the other? Ella Langley.
Oh, yes. Love
It
Ella.
seems like every song they put out is top
Yep.
level. It's so good.
It is great. And it's just very catchy. So,
Yeah, it is very catchy.
Yep.
Liliana and I were listening to one of the songs. I can't remember the name of the song, but it's where she's talking about, I guess her boyfriend went for a girl from Texas.
Oh yeah.
She's from Texas, I can
Oh
tell.
yeah.
Is that the name of the
That's
song?
Ella Langley.
Is that Ella Langley?
Yes.
That Liliana got a little teary-eyed because she's like, oh.
Aw.
But it's a great song.
It really is. I listen to Ella all the time. I just
Who's
enjoy.
your favorite female artist right
Oh,
now?
Ella right now.
Is it?
Yes,
But
absolutely.
who else is on that? Who else are some of the stars right now?
Oh, Lainey Wilson.
Lainey Wilson,
really
yeah,
good.
that's the one I forgot, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
And but yeah, we're playing them all. So
And that's like I said. Normally, the current stuff is not my jam, but I am really impressed with the content they
Well,
put
I'm
out.
glad.
Yeah, good stuff. Great job to the whole team. What they're doing.
That's right.
Taylor, let's talk. You and I we're kicking around a subject. We got a few minutes left in this last segment here. The surrogacy issue. I'm not an expert on this. I know there's some complexities as to what's going on, but you were sharing a story with me about this when we were taking a break.
Yes, yeah, and it's going to seem like a hard pivot, especially on a talk show that's on a country music station.
We've been all over the place.
We really have been. We really have been. But one of the reasons people like country music is because it speaks to normal human life in a way that many other genres just don't, and it speaks to kind of an Americana vibe of life and living that speaks to human flourishing and
tells a story.
Kind of tells a story and gives you a real sense of what America feels like in a way. And connected to the idea of how we think about human life and human flourishing is the fact that we now live in a world where technology has given us some incredible new abilities. But I think it's important to realize that just because we have the ability that we can do something doesn't mean that we should. And so that's where I wanted to talk about one of those issues that matters. And I think that's the question surrounding fertility and surrogacy. Surrogacy, for those who may not be familiar with this, is the ability of one woman to carry and give birth to a baby on behalf of another person or couple who intend to raise the child as their own. Obviously, only possible in our modern technological age.
Amazing that we can even do this.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And like I said, just because we can and just because it's kind of spectacular that we have the ability to do this doesn't mean we should. So in as it relates to the mechanics of it, the embryo is created using egg and sperm from donors, other people outside, apart from this woman, through IVF oftentimes. And then it's implanted into the womb of a surrogate who is paid to carry this child to term on behalf of this other person. And so I think one of the deeper problems with surrogacy and the whole fertility industry is that we are starting to treat children like products of reproduction that can be purchased, engineered, and delivered. And that is a very scary place to go. Obviously, infertility is heartbreaking. And couples who desperately want children, they deserve compassion. They're desiring a good thing. Parenthood is a wonderful gift from God. But compassion for adults does not mean that we stop asking these ethical questions. So I do want to pivot to that story. But
you shared a story that's just heartbreaking.
It is. It's the story of McKenna West. And this is a lady who agreed to be a surrogate for multiple reasons. She wanted to do something meaningful. And she was also a single mom of 2. And this was going to give her some opportunities financially. And she, not everyone who engages with what our society allows is fully equipped to handle the ethical questions around that. So I'm not going to, judge her for getting involved in that at all. But basically what happened was she agreed to be a surrogate. Around the 20-week mark, an ultrasound was performed, and she and the couple whose child she was carrying were very excited about this. And then that ultrasound revealed that there was a heart defect in this child, this baby boy that she's carrying. And the couple immediately cut off contact with her and wanted to enforce a provision in the contract that allowed them to abort the child, to force her to have an abortion just because of the child wasn't quote unquote perfect. And that is one of the massive ethical problems that
what
our
happens
society
at that
faces.
point then?
That's the question. So right now, even though there's a contract that specifies this, she's put in a position where she's feeling like I cannot be party to an abortion of this child that I'm now connected to, that I am, deeply emotionally bonded with.
Sure.
I don't think that that's right at all. So thankfully, she was able to reach out to Live Action, which is an incredible pro-life organization, and get connected with some awesome people who are helping her. But now she's in a legal battle.
Yeah.
And she is potentially on the hook if she loses. She's potentially on the hook for all of the costs relating to this pregnancy, paying back this couple, and potentially even more than that in damages if she only does the thing that she feels like is ethical and right, which is to say, you may not do this. And thankfully, even her brother has stepped in and said, we will adopt the baby if you carry to term.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. Her family stepping in around her to try to provide aid and comfort. But what a horrible ethical situation to
It
find
is. It's
yourself
tough because I do know some people that battle that issue, and it's something that you want to see people who want to be parents have that opportunity to become a parent. And I don't know all the complexities that goes along with that, but that when you think about a scenario like that, how do you think of every unintended consequence in that when you decide to go down that path? And I don't know how you do it. So I'm praying that thing comes to resolution in a fair way. But it's where is the pro-life movement on that subject?
Well, unfortunately, they've been pretty mixed on it. I think there is finally coalescing in the last year or two a strong understanding of what is at play.
And has every state approved this?
No. I mean, well, I should say right now it's pretty much a Wild West. So when there's a new industry created like this, if a state does not move quickly to
then it's
set up some
unregulated.
guardrails,
Yeah.
it's essentially
Yeah.
fully unregulated.
Right.
And that is the position of most states right now. And some of the realities I want to come back to are, regardless of what you think about fertility, again, as I said, I don't want to repeat it, parents that are struggling with fertility, they deserve a lot of compassion.
Yeah,
It's
no
a
doubt.
hard and heartbreaking
Yep.
situation. But every life matters. And no woman should be forced to kill the baby she's carrying out of quote-unquote compassion for a couple who wants to have a child. Our society can't preference people getting quote-unquote designer children
Yeah.
over the life of
I
that
agree.
infant
I agree, Taylor.
who is a
That's-
person.
Yeah. Yeah. And just imagine that's one story that's hit the headlines. I would imagine there's dozens, if not more, other
Yes.
like that, where
That's
something
right.
doesn't turn out right. Frightening. So what's next for you, young man? What you got going on?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm fully involved in politics and still doing the roofing gig as well. So
You gotta pay the bills.
I've got
Yeah.
to. I've got to.
There's a lot going on. I saw you at the Rick Jackson grand opening of their Athens office the other day.
Yes.
And that was impressive. You know what struck me about that crowd? Very well attended. I would say 150 people probably were in there. It was
Packed
a little
in a small room.
yeah, a
That's
little
right.
meet and greet, kind of showing off the new campaign office. But what impressed me was the youth movement in that building.
Yes.
Normal GOP event like that, that's probably an older crowd. The other day, I would say 50 of those 150 were 30 or younger.
And it was great, and it shows that Rick Jackson's messaging is working. And I know we didn't have time to cover too much of the political races in Georgia here, but his message of, his personal story is fantastic.
It is. It's
from
so
nothing.
good, Taylor. And James Cooper alluded to this that night. He kind of made a joke about me when James Cooper, 10th District Chairman, sent me the video way back. What was this? Probably February of this year, when he first came out. Before anyone knew who Rick Jackson was, I didn't know who he was. When he sent me the video, I thought it was a joke, and I don't mean that disparagingly. I just thought it was such a good story. It seemed like this is too good to be true. The guy goes from absolute, a terrible situation in foster care, living in the projects, rising to be the leader of one of the most profitable industries or successful businesses in healthcare. It's too good to be true, and that's what I thought.
And what I love that story says kind of ties in some of the overarching trends that we've been discussing throughout all of these issues we've touched on today. And that is the greatness of our country, the
Yes.
greatness of America that allows someone to do that. And then he himself recognizes that. And so he wants to pour back into his state and into his nation by taking this position of service because he wants to protect the system that allowed him to become so successful, the system that took care of him. In some ways, didn't in others. He wants to see it improved, but he wants to make sure that other people have those same opportunities. Only in America is a story like that possible, truly.
If you've had the chance to meet him, and there's going to be plenty of meet and greets coming up, but if you've had a chance to meet him, the one thing that you'll see is that when you're visiting with him, he's genuine. He's not going to light up the room with a fancy speech. That's not his wheelhouse, right? He's not a flamboyant speaker. He's down to earth. He's genuine. When he speaks, it means something. But if you have that one-on-one visit with him, which every time I've seen him at one of these meet and greets, he takes the time and he'll shake the hand of every person that came to see him.
He absolutely will. Then there's actually a great history here in Georgia. Not that long ago, a guy who was not the best on the campaign trail, not the best speech giver, so to speak, but connected very well with the average person, connected with voters in a way that was real and a way that was genuine. And that's our current governor, Brian Kemp.
Best retail politician in the history of politics.
He is. But if
Yeah.
you looked at that stage when, the initial part of the race, when 5 or 6 guys jumped in, easily one of the bottom in terms of his ability to give a speech. And
Yeah.
I say that in no way disparaging him.
No, but he
wasn't
wouldn't.
the polished,
That's right. He wouldn't rally up the crowd.
Exactly.
It's just not that kind of guy. But again, you meet him. Unique thing about Governor Kemp is he had this uncanny ability that if you meet him 3 months later, you may just shake a hand. Hey, I'm Billy Bob. Da 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 da. 3 months later, he's going to say, "Hey, Billy Bob, how are you doing?" He'll recognize you.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how he does it.
Mine like a steel trap.
Yeah, it's incredible. But you're right. And I think what you're looking at now with Rick Jackson, same attribute. You cannot fake that. It's genuine. It's
Yes.
a genuine love for the people. It's a genuine love for the position. And so it's not rooted in their elevation through politics is not rooted in I want to be a politician. It's I want to do something good for my community.
I want to serve people.
That's right. I want to
Yes.
serve people.
Yeah.
And I
Contrast that with his opponent, by the way.
That's right.
Who has
Yep.
used every position she's had in the last few decades to promote her own self-interest,
Yep.
while not actually pursuing the best interest of those she represents. And it's been in my mind, a career of failure, especially over the last decade.
Well, I think it's incumbent upon Rick Jackson to remind everybody what her tenure as Atlanta mayor looked like. It was not good.
She allowed the city to burn down.
It was
There's
not
two people in
good.
Atlanta's history have allowed it to burn. One was General Sherman, and one was Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Yeah.
I don't think we should elect that person governor of the state.
No, absolutely not. Whoa, we may have had a little power outage for a second there. Everything okay over there, Chastity? Anything smoking? Anything on fire?
Not yet.
Okay, all right. Well, good deal. Well, this is great. Taylor, we were flat out of time. We used up every minute of our hour allocated to us, and
Time flies when I'm in here with you, Mark.
we got to hand music back to the listeners. But I appreciate you joining us today. It's a lot of fun. Let's do this again.
Such a pleasure.
I think you and I had a lot of stuff that we didn't even get to. So we'll do a round 2, maybe another 3 or 4 weeks if you got time to come back.
I'll look forward to it.
When you're not on the roof somewhere.
That's right. That's right.
was a lot
God
of
bless
fun.
y'all, Mark. I appreciate it.
Great job, Taylor. It's Taylor Hawkins. Chastity, great job on the boards as always. I appreciate you and everything you do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, and we appreciate our listeners. Stick around, folks. Great crunchy music, and we'll be back on tomorrow at noon. See y'all.